Square.
The content, information, and opinions expressed during the related show are those of the show personalities and guest alone, and not those of Vic Canellis Media Group, its parent, affiliates, or stations. VCMG Live is not responsible for any content, information, or opinions expressed. User bears full responsibility for their reliance on such content, information, or opinions.
Sanders, a name you can trust. With over 20 years of real estate experience and selling over 150 homes a year, Laura Sanders is the #1 RE/MAX agent in the state of Florida for 2021. Join us each week as we discuss how to make money through buying and flipping homes to renting versus selling and everything in between. To join the conversation, call in live 888-994-4995, Studio A.
Hi, and welcome to Making Money with Laura, a name you can trust. Thank you for joining us every Monday at 6 o'clock, where we talk about different ways in the real estate industry that we can help you to make money, whether it's save money, make money, whatever that might be for you. So today, we are going to have an appraiser with us, and we're going to talk about what's going on in the market and how it's changing and how it affects the appraisal industry with our mortgages today. So, but before I, introduce our guest today, just wanted to talk about something that was dear to my heart this week that happened, and that was about 14 years ago. I helped a lady purchase a home that I had met when I was in 9th grade. She was a lady that, worked at a salon, and, she did manicures, pedicures for me when I was in 9th grade. And I helped her buy a property 14 years ago. And she called me about 4 months ago, 2 weeks before she passed away, to tell me that she wanted to make sure that I knew she was dying, and she wanted me to take care of her sale of her home. And the reason why I bring this up is because I want to let you know how in real estate and how I work my business, that I make sure that I spend time with my clients and really keep that relationship going with them. And that's something that's really important to me. And, just talking with their children and their responses to me, telling me, hey, our mom trusted you, and our mom said, listen, when the time comes, you're going to handle everything, and we put our trust in you. And I know that I got them top dollar, which that's, important, but not the most important thing. What was most important is that family trusted me for so long to do so much for them, and just to think that she called me knowing that she was in that situation was really special to me. And, I just want Lucy Fernandez's children to know that I appreciate their trust that they gave to me to help their mom when she bought, and to help me when she was selling after she had passed. She meant a lot to me, somebody that I knew for a very long time. So just wanted to put that out there. So without further ado, let me introduce to you Danielle Matthews. She is from Empire Appraisals, and I use Danielle a lot. She's wonderful at what she does. So Danielle, tell us a little bit about what you do.
I am a residential real estate appraiser, and I inspect residential homes between 1 and 4 units, single family, duplex, triplex, fourplex, and I assist Laura usually with pre-listing appraisals, doing the appraisal, helping understand the market trends currently, what's going on in the current market, what are you competing with, and what's the highest price you can get as a sale of your home.
Okay, so the market's changing, and that is definitely not good for a lot of people, but it is good in the sense that we're not normalized, but we should lead back to a normalized market, I would gather, and I hope. I mean, I've been doing this for over 20 years. How long have you been doing this?
20 years.
Okay, so with a normalized market where we're going to see prices are going to start to stabilize, we hope. So one of the things that I was really interested in knowing is that, and correct me if I'm wrong, when the market was going crazy this past year, prior to about May, and the market was going crazy, the appraisers kept adding for time. Like, it was a time adjustment. And I know I have to be very careful about how I explain these things, because we have to always take into consideration that whoever's listening doesn't understand a lot of what we're talking about. So you have to wonder, how does the price keep going up? It's adding for time to create the price to go up. Are you now deducting for time yet? Has that started yet?
Every market is different, and by that I mean neighborhood. So a house in Coral Springs might not be in decline, whereas a house in Fort Lauderdale may be in decline. So it's really market generated, whether it's increasing, stable, declining. It's called a market trends adjustment. So it's not a time adjustment. Sometimes it's positive, sometimes it's negative. Most of the South Florida neighborhoods right now are stabilized. And by that I mean, over the last 3 months, they're not high, they're not low, so there's no time adjustments, they're just level. So how does the market increase? It typically increases with cash. So yes, you make a positive time adjustment for time, but also cash sales is what drives the market up. So if something's under contract for $500,000 and it appraised at $490,000, if they go ahead and pay that $500,000, the extra $10,000 in cash, that helps create an increasing market, is cash. Okay. Otherwise, it's always stable and not increasing or decreasing. It's usually cash that makes the difference. Are they paying a little bit over appraisal or a little bit over list?
Okay. So I personally, before the market went nutty, I would do a pre-listing appraisal. That's one thing that we would use an appraisal besides for a bank, because you work also with banks, but
Correct.
You also work independently. So let's talk first about independent appraisals prior to listing the property. I know why I recommend it. Why do you think realtors should do that?
I recommend a pre-listing appraisal just so the seller understands what's going to happen when the bank appraiser comes in. So there's no surprises when they're half packed up and ready to move and the appraisal comes in $20,000 below contract or whatever the difference may be. Just the purpose is to help the seller understand what's going on with the market and what to expect. So it lets them know what they're competing with. Is there a lot of inventory, which there is in most markets right now. There's more houses to choose from than there has been in the past 12 to 18 months, roughly. But knowing what you're competing with is important. Right now, we're not really experiencing short sales or bank owned, but is that a factor? You know, what's going on? Are people still paying more than list, more than appraisal? I do that when I do my pre-listings, is I make sure I contact every agent. You know, are you getting offers over and above? Was it a multiple offer situation? What's going on currently? Just to understand, you know, what's going on and not to have any unexpected surprises.
How soon before they put the house on the market should they do this pre-listing appraisal? Like, how long is it good for?
I would, you know, within a month, just to get an idea of what am I competing with. I mean, if you do it too soon, 2 or 3 months before you're planning on selling, it's not that the sales may be dated, but it's
Another
more realistic.
good sale could come in.
Yeah, another good sale could have occurred. And again, I always put in what are you competing with. So if something's pending and it's closing in 2 weeks, you know to look up that address prior to listing and see what did it close for, you know, how does it compare? Mm-hmm. Did it sell for more than list? And it just helps you understand better what's going on with current.
So should they have all their updates done prior to doing this? I mean, if they, like, for instance, when I go into a house, right, sometimes it's not the neatest. Like, it's kind of messy, and they're like, they'll say to me, oh, I don't want you to come, you know, for me to come before. And I'm like, well, I can see past that, like, because I know what can be fixed and what's, you know, but when you're doing it, you're taking pictures and you're looking at whatever it might be, like a broken door or a kitchen cabinet hanging off the, you know, you're going to deduct for that, right? So they should really have it in the best.
They should have it pretty close to the condition that they're going to sell it in. The one exception to that is if you're doing some major renovation, you're changing out the kitchen or the floors, I can always do the extraordinary assumption that it's completed and, you know, what will it be worth when I have a new kitchen or when this kitchen is completed, just to kind of have the visual of what are the countertops going to be, what are the quality of the materials they're using. But for the most part, it should be close to condition of ready to list.
So that actually brings me into a really good question, I think anyway. And again, what we're trying to do is teach you how to utilize this to make more money, whatever that might be. So a 203K program, and that's where you're trying to figure out what a house will be after all the renovations are done. That's a loan program. You do those appraisals, correct?
I do.
So is there anything that we should know about that? Because I think that for realtors and for buyers, this is something really important, that if you want to buy a house that's completely just disgusting and a horrible looking home, this is a good loan program. So how does that work with the appraisal?
So it's called an as-is and a subject-to valuation. So as it is currently, what is it worth, and what will it be worth when these things are completed, whether that be a new roof, a new kitchen, new floors, whatever the changes are going to be. Usually they provide a budget. I'm going to spend $50,000 renovating the kitchen and 2 bathrooms. How will that translate into market value? So you find comparables that are in similar condition or need repairs or wouldn't typically qualify for bank financing for the as-is condition, and then sales with similar updates or condition that you're looking to have completed, and that's where you get your as-is and your as-repaired values.
Okay. So to kind of break it up a little bit, because there's a lot of things we could talk about with appraisals. Anything crazy ever happened to you? Ever walking on some naked people? Or, I don't know, I'm just trying to break it up so that we're not so like straightforward and boring, you know, about real estate.
Yeah, well.
You know, I mean, I've walked it on naked people laying in the bed when I've shown my makeup. I walk out the other way.
Yep,
So,
I have done that, but probably the craziest was when I went to the wrong house.
Did you go? Wait,
I went in the house, I measured the house, I took pictures of
how did you get in it?
The tenant let me in.
Oh, okay, that's like okay, that reminds me of something good that happened. Yeah.
Mom was cooking in the kitchen, and I said, I'm here to do the appraisal for the purchase. Okay, no problem. And they let me walk through the whole house, front yard, backyard. The only thing is I couldn't get into the master bathroom. And I was like, I have to take pictures of all the rooms, including the bathroom. And she says, my husband's in the shower. We didn't know you were coming. And I was like, we had a 3 o'clock appointment. Well, my husband's in the shower. I said, okay, I'll come back in 20 minutes after I take my comparable photos. As soon as I walked outside, there was an Asian in the house next door going, are you the appraiser for my house? And I went, oh my gosh. I just walked through the entire house.
That's pretty funny.
The owner that was taking the shower came out and said, he was a tenant. He said, can I help you? And I said, I have to look at the house to the right and to the left before I come up with a value of house in the middle. That was 20 years ago.
Oh, okay, so you had just started, so that's okay.
Yeah.
That's excusable. It's like different if you did it now.
It would be different, yeah.
I mean, I guess it's like, I don't know, it's not. Yes, I actually just had a situation. I was getting a new roof, and the tenant called me and she says, they ripped the house next door's roof off. And I was like, what? She's like, yeah, they ripped the houses next. I go, this stuff only happens to me. I mean, obviously it doesn't affect me money-wise, but yet kind of slowed down me getting the roof. It was a metal roof, and the company, I called them up. I'm like, hey, you ripped off my neighbor's roof. And they were like, yeah, we know. I'm like, okay. They're like, and your point? And I'm like, no, I was just calling to make sure you knew you ripped. And they were like really rude. And I was like, and honestly, like he still doesn't have a new roof on yet. I'm like wondering what's going on.
Oh my goodness.
So yeah, I said to my husband, I was like, I can't even make this stuff up that somebody would rip off the wrong roof. But so that's a lot worse than you're walking into the wrong, measuring the wrong. I was like, at least that was just like 30 minutes of your time.
Yeah.
But okay, so let's go back to appraising and how we can help people to understand appraisals better, because I think that, you know, you're saying that it really depends on the trends that are going on in each area, which could be like in a subdivision in a city or an actual city, and you look at those trends and see what the adjustments are. So I guess the other question is taking homes to compare, would you take a house that's 1,000 square feet as a comparable more than another home?
The comparables should not exceed 30% of the square footage, the lot size, the age. That's typical guidelines. It can exceed that, but it shouldn't.
And if you have other comps, you wouldn't.
Right, correct.
But if you were looking for comps and couldn't find something, you might go and adjust that?
You can, yes. Okay. I mean, staying within your immediate market area and what caters to the buyer in that neighborhood, whether it's, you know, location, view, if it's waterfront, it could be fixed bridges that makes a difference, you know, the size of the boat that you can put behind the house. You should always be apples to apples.
Okay. So what would you tell realtors, because I'm hoping that there's realtors listening to this, but what would you tell realtors when they get a bad appraisal? Like, I'll give you an example. I had one in Miramar where we were on water. We were actually on a canal that, I mean, it didn't go anywhere very specific, but you could put a boat in the back, and it actually had a dock space. He did not use any comps with water. So, I mean, there's value there. It's not like it's a ditch. Like, I get it. A ditch, like, maybe you might get $2,500 for that ditch, but this was actual water. So what do you do in that instance?
Well, I always recommend, you know, getting in front of it. So bringing comparables with you when you're meeting your appraiser and just kind of talking through the selling points of the house. Why is this water valuable? You know, what can you do with it? I know that a house sold, you know, 2 blocks over 6 months ago, wasn't in similar condition, and just kind of talk through,
right,
you know, why, and provide comparables, of course. And once it's done and submitted to the lender, getting the appraiser to change the value, that can be a challenge because it's already out there and the banks have seen it. So it's better to, you know, get in front of it.
So I did provide comparables. I did. And updates. I give them a whole list with every updates. I give them the ages of everything on the updates so that, and I know that you guys don't really like to give value of things over 5 years. Listen to me, realtors, when I'm telling you, like, stuff that's over 5 years, you guys really don't like to give any value to it.
It depends on what it is.
Yeah.
But
Kitchen,
we have boxes that we check for lenders, and was it updated, you know, 1 to 5 years ago, 6 to 10, or 11 to 15. So that just kind of falls into a quality rating.
Okay. Any other suggestions that you recommend?
I highly recommend pre-listing appraisals.
Okay. What about, so also when people are dying to get out of their homes, those are good ones to do too, right?
Dying to get out of their homes.
Probate,
yes.
Get it, dying to get out of their homes.
Yes. So in those situations, usually you need a
value of
date
the day
of death and then current valuation. If there's a big spread, what's the difference? Because that's how the taxes are determined for the person that inherits.
Okay, so the taxes are determined upon the date of death value. So if they had died pre-COVID or during COVID before values went crazy, they'd only be taxed on that value and not what they sold for later on for that crazy value if they held on to it while it was finishing probate?
I'm not an accountant, so I'm not sure how all that works.
Okay, well, that's a good question for an accountant. Okay, so if we have any accountants to call in and tell us the answer, we'd like to know.
Yes.
Yeah.
I know that a lot of times for the family, it's what is the value as of the date of death, and that determines if they sell it in the future, capital gains.
Okay. So we're doing lenders, you're doing appraisals for lenders. Are you doing your appraisals differently for a probate versus a lender versus a pre-listing?
I know it's a myth that a refinance appraisal always comes in lower than a purchase appraisal. That is not true. An appraisal is an appraisal.
Unless
Market
they do a
value is
drive-by.
market value. A different scope of work.
Okay.
So that's where the different values would come from. What is the scope of work? So when you hire me to do a pre-listing appraisal, it's not only what are the closed sales, but what am I competing with? What's going to be closing in the future? What is something under contract for? Sometimes the agents do disclose that prior to it closing, and they'll say, I got full offer, or I got a little bit more than list. So I know what that means. If you tell me I couldn't even get list on it, I know where the market's going for the future. So pre-listing may be a little bit more of an aggressive valuation than a refinance, but they're all the same as far as, you're still looking at the closed sales. It's just that a lender may have requirements of not exceeding 90 days for sale time, or 2 listings that support, something like that. It depends on the scope of work for the client.
So then let's talk about the scope of work. Number one is, I think that when you are doing a refinance, maybe you need to ask the lender, are you going to do a drive-by or a full appraisal? Because that will tell you a lot of how there could be some hiccups and not getting that full value you need. So that's something I think people should think about, is to ask that question. And then the other thing is talking about size difference, right? And I feel like we could have you back on again and talk about more stuff, but size difference. So 2 bedrooms versus 3 bedrooms. I think that a 2-bedroom doesn't have as much value as a 3 or a 4-bedroom does. And then when you get to 5, it's like kind of moot. Maybe not. You tell me.
Sometimes I adjust for bedroom count, usually adjust for square footage. So typically you shouldn't be using a 2-bedroom compared to a 3-bedroom, because if a buyer needs a 3-bedroom, they wouldn't settle for a 2-bedroom. The only way they typically would is if there's an additional area within the house that can
Like
be
a den.
substituted.
And
A den,
let's talk
a
about
Florida
that
room,
too. Okay.
a converted garage, something else that could substitute
Converted
that
garage.
bedroom.
Interesting.
Yes.
Really? Okay. So let's go back to that substitute, right? So a bedroom has to have, and again, correct me if I'm wrong, because I'm the realtor, you're the appraiser. A bedroom needs to have a door. It needs to have a window. It needs to have a closet, right?
No.
Okay. So
A bedroom has to have 2 forms of egress. So you
So
have to
door and
have an
window.
exit to the outside. So sometimes in some of these older houses, Tamarack, Florida rooms, right? So if the bedroom window backs up to the Florida room, and then the Florida room is enclosed, and that bedroom no longer has access to the outside, it's no longer a bedroom.
Okay.
It becomes a den.
Okay. So we're actually running out of time. So Danielle, tell us how we can get in contact with you if we wanted to get a pre-appraisal, because obviously the lenders hire you for that, but a pre-appraisal, or if we've had a death in the family and we need to get a value of a date, how can we get a hold of you?
Or a divorce.
Or we missed that. We're going to have you back again. But let's talk about how we can get in contact with you. What would be the best contact for you, and what's your website?
It's empireresidentialappraisals.com, and empireappraisals@yahoo.com is my email.
Okay. All right. Well, I thank you very much for coming on the show today. I don't know if we have enough time, so we're good today. And thank you very much for joining me at Making Money with Laura Sanders, a name you can trust. Call you? Call me. Yeah, I guess that would help, right? I'm here for some referrals too. Call me at 954-650-0827. Again, that's Laura Sanders, 954-650-0827. And my website is Laura Sell. I couldn't afford the S, so laurasell.com. Thanks, and see you next Monday.
Thank you for tuning in for Making Money with Laura Sanders, a name you can trust. To join the conversation, call us at the studio, 888-994-4995 Studio A, or contact Laura directly at 954-650-0827. Laura Sanders, a name you can trust. We look forward to seeing you next week.